Can everyone hear me? Good, okay. Hi, I'm Gretel Johnston with Best Matter. I have a few questions. One is, Victor, you said that Browns Ferry did not adversely affect public health and safety, that was determined, period. You know, I couldn't find on Adams, this is not unusual, but I have not been able to find the radiological operations report for Browns Ferry this year. It's usually published in April. I made several attempts to find that on the website, and I'd like to take a look at it. But one of the things that has been revealed in these reports is that there is a serious issue with degradation. We already knew there were issues with fuel cladding degradation and fuel failure issues with leakages and leakages caused by degradation. So I don't think you can definitively say that the health and safety is not affected by that, knowing that there are effluents that are being released inadvertently, not just planned releases. And so, you know, until that's assessed, if you have a way of assessing that, please let me know.
Greta, thank you for that. First of all, thanks for the comment. And I think there's a question in there as well. And so you alluded to the effluent release information. We will find that and get it to you.
No, it's not the effluents release. It's the radiological operations report. It's different. The effluents release, that's out. But I haven't been able to find the
We'll make sure we understand what you're looking for and try to find that to you. Some of us have a difficult time navigating the agency documentation and management system, which Mr. Shea actually created when he was with them. Actually, he didn't. We're actually, we, the NRC, are investing in improvements in the Adams system, so hopefully it'll become more easy for people like us to navigate and find what we're looking for. So there are regulatory requirements on what effluents, both liquid and airborne, a NRC licensed facility can release. And these limits are guided by Environmental Protection Agency requirements that have been studied scientifically and proven to be safe for us. As long as those limits, and to the extent that you're willing to accept that, and we are as a regulatory safety agency, that as long as they are well below those limits, we, the NRC, feel very comfortable in saying that public health and safety and the environment have been protected. So that's why I could say that, period. Next paragraph.
Okay. So you do fully believe that ALERA is an appropriate level. What does ALERA stand for?
As low as reasonably achievable.
The lowest,
as low as reasonably achievable.
As low as reasonably achievable. But of course, you know, over 60 studies have been done around the world on cancer rates around nuclear power plants. I mean, people living near the nuclear power plants, and over 70% of those show there's significant rise in cancer rates near nuclear power plants. Okay, so we will not get into a discussion of that, although I just want to say that definitively is kind of like saying there's no climate change. It's just ignoring the data, and you can keep having more and more studies to try and get the results you're looking for, but if you don't acknowledge that really good studies have been done by the German government, the French government, the United Kingdom, and our own Bureau report, we can keep, you know, commissioning more studies, but at some point we have to acknowledge the studies that exist and act on them. That's my stance. So that wasn't a question, I'm sorry, I wanted to clarify that saying definitively is ignoring the science, in my opinion. And it's not just my opinion, it's, if you look at the science, I'm not allowed to make up facts. Okay, all right. Regarding the component degradation, I've asked in these meetings before if you have come up with some kind of software to track when a component was installed and when it is due for replacement. Or I know you do inspections, you have kind of across the board inspections, but it really seems to me in our day and age that you need to keep track of when components need to be replaced. And of course I bring this up because of the issue with the components that were 30-something years old, and they were supposed to have a life of 8 to 10 years, and they caused problems. I'm just saying, can we do some preventative action here and think ahead and use existing technologies like software to track our components in the nuclear power plants? Has anything been done on that?
So I recall you asking that question, and we responded at the last meeting. In fact, Dave, I think you even commented as well. Do you want to start? Why don't you hold that in your hand?
We have had this question before. We have addressed it. A couple things. TVA does track most of their components. They have mechanisms and databases where they know how long a particular component has been in place. And for the most part, they know how long something's supposed to last. What may not have come out in the past is a lot of lifetimes specified by vendors are oftentimes based on runtime. For instance, a diesel generator is a classic, it's a big component, but it's a classic example. Diesel generators don't run very much at nuclear plants, and so they don't have very long run times. So when a utility like TVA goes back to the vendor, the first question the vendor asks them is, how often are you running it? And if they say it's not running very often, then the vendor says, well, it can go longer then. So the point I'm trying to make is some components don't really have a hard, fast lifetime. It depends on how they use that component. But big picture, the NRC does not track individual components. We don't have the ability to do that. We do check and monitor TVA's application of availability and reliability of their equipment. As Victor mentioned, that we do have inspection areas such as maintenance role. Oftentimes, and I'm going to kind of cut it short here, but oftentimes we look for results. You brought up, there's been some examples where a component might have failed or something. Well, then we do a more focused look at why did it fail. And if it appears that it failed because they weren't doing the right kind of maintenance under the maintenance rule, then we place the burden on, in this case, TVA, to give us a good answer. Well, why did they let it go that long? A lot of our response is more reactive. The burden on them for their maintenance and their maintenance rule program is under that particular NRC set of guidelines.
I understand that.
Let me mention one other
totally
thing,
understand.
Greta. The maintenance rule is a key component of component maintenance monitoring, which is under 10 CFR Part 5065. It's the maintenance rule issued in 1988. Yeah. Also, another key area that requires licensees to monitor.
5065,
yeah, 10 CFR 5065 is under 10 CFR Part 54. License renewal, licensees who are seeking and in a period of a renewed license beyond the first 40 years have to establish and implement aging management programs for components covered by the period of the extended license. So those are two significant requirements that NRC places on utilities to assure reliability of equipment.
Well, thank you for that. Of course, I understand that most of your process is reactive, and it's dealing with events that have already happened. But I guess what I'm saying is, can we, step back a little bit and see this recurring problem of degraded components and not keeping track of them, of replacements in advance. And I understand that, some things cannot be as quantitatively or qualitatively recorded as others, but as your example of the generator only being used intermittently, why couldn't that be, popped into a software program so that you have an idea of how many times it's gone on and off?
Yeah, and they do specifically track the diesel generator runtime, like you're saying. I just wanted to point out that our component design basis inspections do look at, when they're doing their samples of components, they actually drill down to look at equipment age, manufacturer's recommendation for replacement. We do it on a sampling basis. We don't look at everything, but we do when we're choosing those significant samples for the CDBI, the component design basis inspections. That is part of the inspection.
Yeah, I understand you cannot do everything. I realize that. I appreciate what you do to all of you and TVA, to keep us safe. So thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that explanation. I have a question about the tornadoes. I've brought this up, of course, since 2011. What speeds, I've been told that the speeds are of Browns Ferry, that it's designed, the maximum speed is, do you know what it is?
Oh, for wind speed, tornado?
Yeah, wind speed for tornadoes.
Well,
So let's not guess, if we don't know.
yeah, I don't know
Excuse me.
the design.
It is in their licensing basis, and we can get you that number. So
Well, I hope
let me
that's,
take a little bit of a crack at it. The TVA, in this case Browns Ferry, they have procedures to address wind speeds, to do things like prepare the plant for anticipated bad weather, usually it's bad weather, and they even go as far as, if it gets to certain levels, the procedures tell them to shut down the plant, put it in a safe condition. That's way in advance of the maximum wind speed of the plant design.
yeah.
So, I guess what I'm saying is, I don't know the exact answer for the building, design.
I know what the regulation is, I'm
But-
just not sure.
But I'm telling you, we have some assurance that, they are designed for seismic events, and they are designed for the anticipated maximum tornadoes and wind speeds. But even above that, they take, you were talking about proactive, preemptive type actions. They do. They have procedures that will put the plant in a safe condition if the weather people tell them something's coming.
Yeah.
So I think that gives you some confidence that the plan is going to be able to deal with that.
Well, that's pretty standard in this part of the country, people, you don't keep your computer running when the tornadoes are coming. You put it on a backup system. So that's, kind of the way it needs to be. Okay, so I guess one of the things that I'm aware of is that those standards changed when Browns Ferry was built. Browns Ferry Unit 1 was already built in 1974, and in 1974 they were beginning to build Unit 2, or they may have already built it, I'm not sure, when GE proposed that limit be 260 miles per hour. And the NRC did a study, which they published in '74, And they specified that it would be 360 instead of 260. That's a big difference. If you know tornadoes, you know what a big difference that is. That has since been back down to 300 miles per hour. I'm concerned because I know the structure of the secondary containment, and that containment is over open cooling pools that are raised up in the air. And I just drove down right after this last tornado. I just happened to be up in Tennessee and drove down and saw the damage there. I was just amazed. Those were only 2 and 3 category tornadoes. And I saw the damage when those power towers that were about 1,500 feet from the cooling pools were twisted up, a whole row of them next to Browns Ferry. I mean, you know, really close. We were really close to having our own Fukushima 6 weeks after Fukushima. So I've been concerned about this issue ever since, and it worries me that there's no real solid overhead containment of those cooling pools in the event of this kind of catastrophe. Another thing that I'm concerned about is that I don't know that there's been a reevaluation since 1994 of tornadoes. Has the group who did that first one, I've forgotten their tornado severe weather prediction center. They're part of NOAA, I think. Anyway, since climate change is part of our world now, I'm just wondering if that has been reevaluated, and if y'all would please put in a request that be reevaluated.
Greta, you're much more expert in tornadoes than I am. And I'll ask Jonathan to scratch off his list, find the tornado design basis, because it sounds like you perhaps knew what the answer was. And we're trying to see if we knew. But we will reconfirm the number. Let me. One of the many things that the United States learned from the accident at Fukushima, which occurred a little over 3 years ago, was the fact that, yes, the world is changing. And that natural hazards, significant external events beyond that which we thought were possible, can happen, whether the frequency or the magnitude or the size. Immediately after Fukushima, the Commission directed the NRC to form a task force. It's called the Near-Term Task Force, and within 90 days produce a report to assess the implications of the accident at Fukushima Daiichi on plants in the United States. And of the 12 areas that were recommended after 90 days, among them were near-term task force recommendations. There were 2 parts of it. 2.1 had to do with seismic earthquakes and flooding events, and it required all utilities and NRC to conduct walkdowns to examine structures, systems, and components to ensure that the current design could withstand the current licensing basis, the current hazard as we knew it. That was conducted in the fall of 2011, those walkdowns and the associated NRC inspections. We are currently, in fact, we've just received and are evaluating licensee responses to near-term task force recommendation. That was 2.3. Near-term task force recommendation 2.1, which directed all licensees reevaluate your flooding and seismic hazard using current technology, current what we know today about the hazards associated with flooding and the hazards associated with seismicity, and determine whether your plant is adequately designed to withstand what we believe the current reevaluated hazard is. Those were part of those 2, seismic and flooding, were part of a suite of Tier 1 actions, those that should be taken immediately with dispatch. And there's a Tier 2 category of actions, and there's a tier 3 category of actions. Among the tier 3 category of actions is a reevaluation of sites for wind and fires and a number of other things that the Congress actually told us to make sure that we include in our reevaluation. So that's a long-winded answer, but to your question, and that is, are we going to look at wind? Absolutely. And it'll be following within the next year or two as we evaluate those tier 3 actions.
So they are doing it.
So NRC will require licensees to evaluate for wind.
Okay, excellent, that's great. I also want to make sure that there are multiple event disaster, external disaster, such as
Right.
the dam failures, because the requirements now, at least the ones when Browns Ferry was relicensed, the requirements were for 1 feet above for dam failure flood, and 1 feet above for tsunami, which actually happens on rivers. That can happen. There was an earthquake in Alaska that caused a 6-foot tsunami on the Mississippi River. That's really hard to imagine, but these things happen. And I think it's 2 feet for groundwater flood above the Browns Ferry plant base. So, anyway, I just hope that they are doing the multiple issues at once, because who would have thought with Fukushima, who would have thought all that could happen?
Greta, can I ask you, pause just 1 minute. Well, does anyone else have questions? I want to make sure we have time.
Yes.
Gary, I know you will, thanks.
Yeah.
And we have to, Greta, would you mind if I go to them? I want to be sensitive to
Yeah,
the time that we have. And if you have any
possible, I'll come back
follow-up,
for